to What You Will Learn. My name is Adam Ashton.
Hola, hermano, my name is Adam Jones. Mate, Tribes, our second Seth Godin book.
Yeah,
what do you
the
reckon?
first author to double up. And mate, I can't think of anyone more deserving than the man himself, Seth Godin.
Yeah.
Tribes, we need you to lead us.
So, yeah, one of the best books on leadership I've ever come across. It really are. So Seth's goal throughout the book is to sell you on being a leader.
Yeah, that's true. That's you sort of get to the end. He says there's no step-by-step leadership for dummies, anything like that. It's all about basically just making it as obvious as possible that you have to lead.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just sort of like getting you to the point where you realise that, yeah, I have to lead.
And we've all right now got all the resources out there to be able to do it. So the question is not can I do it? It's you choosing. It's your choice now to do it or not. So it is very possible for everyone to be a leader now.
And what did you think of the book?
Mate,
Loved it?
Yeah, absolutely loved it. So I loved his other book, The Dip, as well. He's an incredible author. Very small books, but his point gets across in that 100 pages, and you definitely learn something new.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just we'll get into it. So, as way of definition, he says a tribe is a group of people connected to one another, connected to a leader, and connected to an idea. So that's all a tribe is. And he says that the only difference, there's groups. The difference between a group and a tribe, he says, is that a tribe has a shared interest and a way to communicate. So basically, for you to be a leader, the only two things you need to do is to build that shared interest and strengthen that interest and make easier, better ways to communicate.
Yeah.
So pretty simple.
Yeah.
Not easy, but simple.
Pretty simple. So he says a lot of people now are still kind of stuck in their jobs, and the marketplace now rewards the people who are kind of, slightly rebellious, a little bit different. He calls them heretics. Have you used that word before?
Nah, only maybe throughout 48 Laws of Power, I think they talked about the heretics of throughout history, who just had different ideas and went about doing, I guess, trying to prove it.
Yeah.
Like Galileo and stuff, or like Newton discovering gravity or things like that, where at the time people thought they were crazy, they were heretics, but history shows that they were spot on.
Yeah. So that's who he focuses on throughout the book, is like being a heretic now. It's the marketplace will reward you, and it is the best way to go about being a leader at the moment, not just be complacent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll get into some main themes, mate. So what
my only criticism, it's not a criticism so much, just I don't know if we'll struggle to do the book justice. It's sort of just all over the shop. It's just like very short, punchy sort of 300-word paragraphs. There's no chapters, there's no parts. It's just sort of like a little subtitle and then like a 300-word, but it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's almost like a series of blog posts, but it just flows together so nicely, even though there seems to be no structure.
Yep, so we'll try and do it the best justice we can, but you're better off just going out there and getting the book and jumping into it, I reckon.
I reckon this is only probably, oh mate, I hate to say this is probably only my second Seth book I've read, actually.
Yeah, me too.
I think he's got 19, so there'll be another 17 more coming on the potty soon.
Yeah, fucking know.
I need to buy them all.
So one of the, what do we call them, chapters? One of the chapters is like the difference between average and mediocre. So he says, life is too short to fight the forces of change. And life is too short to hate what you do all day. So he says initiative equals happiness. So he says we all have everything now, and everything we have right now is we have everything to build something bigger than ourselves. So you have to realise this, and then people around you will follow and then take your lead.
Love it. Life's too short to hate what you do every day.
Yeah.
So true.
And then another chapter that follows is he talks about the F word, fear, which is like the main thing stopping us from all leading.
Yeah.
So most ordinary people can dream up remarkable stuff easy. So what's missing is the ability to make things happen. Everyone can get these ideas, but it's the people who can play with their fear and then make her act anyway. They're the ones who get to lead.
Yeah, so true. I'll pull out another one, the opportunity. And he says it's simple. There are tribes everywhere now, inside and outside of organisations, in public, in private, non-profits, classrooms, all across the planet. Every one of these tribes is yearning for leadership and connection. And so he says the question is, isn't, is it possible for me to do that? Because Seth's hypothesis is that it's possible for anyone to do that. But he says the question is, will I choose to do that? So he says you don't need experience or qualifications or anything like that to be a leader. All you need to be a leader is to decide and choose to be a leader. Mm. And he says, without leaders, there are no followers. You're a leader. We need you.
That's it. So he says right now, and also right now in this day and age, that we can lead from the bottom. So in the past, that wasn't really possible. So right now, all you need is some skill and attitude, and you really don't need authority at the moment. In fact, authority can get in the way, he says.
Yeah, so true. Another one, he... Again, apologies if we're jumping all over the shop. That's sort of how the book goes, but it's some good stuff. Leadership is not management. So he says management is about manipulating resources to get a job done. But leadership, on the other hand, is about creating a change that you believe in. So he says managers have employees, but leaders have followers. He says managers make widgets, leaders make change. So I'm sure you've got a manager, or you have had a manager in the past that was not a leader.
Yeah.
Two very different, distinct things.
Definitely. So he says before you make this, as Ashton was just mentioning, it's just making the decision to lead. That's all you got to do now. He says ask yourselves these two questions, and that'll be, will I suffer any measurable impact? And then if the only side effect is that you're going to feel bad about criticism, then you compare that bad feeling with the potential benefits, and then you realise that being remarkable is exciting, fun, and more profitable, and it's great for your career, and the feeling bad part just wears off.
Yep, love it.
So, and then the other question is, how can I create something that critics will criticise?
Yeah, that's sick. He says it's easy to find critics. Whatever happens, whatever you do, whatever anyone does, someone's going to criticise it because either it's not what they believe in, or maybe they're jealous that you did it before them, or whatever the reason is for criticising, there's always going to be critics out there. And so it's up to you to do something that's going to get criticised. Because if people aren't willing to criticise it, it's probably not big enough.
Because it's he says it's the status quo for a reason. That's why there's all this resistance. It's because it's the status quo. So when you try and go against that, you're going to get criticism and you're going to get resistance. But your job as the leader is to have the vision and then cop all that shit, and then keep moving anyway and let everyone follow.
I love it. That's probably the overarching theme of the book, isn't it? Is that you're going against the status quo. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So there's not really too many numbered lists or checklists or anything like that in the book. One thing here, page 21, improving a tribe. He just gives a few dot points. So as I mentioned earlier, the only two things that it takes to turn a group into a tribe is, number one, a shared interest, and number two, a way to communicate. And he said that communication comes in four types or four directions. So either from the leader to the tribe, from the tribe to the leader, from a tribe member to another tribe member, or from a tribe member to an outsider. So he says they're the four ways that you need to communicate for it to be a tribe, and you need to improve those. And actually, have you seen the TED Talk on this?
No.
Should throw to this. Seth's he did a TED Talk called The Tribes We Lead. I don't know if it was before or after this, so he used a lot of the examples from the book. And he says the best way to grow a tribe isn't for the leader to go out there and try and recruit as many people as possible, which we might dive into a bit later. But he says the best way is for tribe members to recruit other tribe members and guide them towards that vision.
Yeah. So another good book probably around that area of communication, it would be Gary Vaynerchuk's Crush It, yeah?
Crush It.
It's all about social media and getting a tribe, I guess, which kind of complements this book pretty well, I thought.
Yeah, for sure. Some of the ways to increase the effectiveness of that communication. So Seth says that transforming that shared interest that we mentioned and turn that into a passionate goal or a desire for change. So shared interest is one thing, but a passionate goal or a desire for change is some next level shit.
Yeah.
Providing tools to allow members to tighten their communication and leveraging the tribe to allow it to grow and gain new members. So he says that most leaders focus on that bit of trying to grow and gain new members, but he says perhaps a better goal is to just tighten the tribe you've already got. If you've already got people who believe in that same shared interest, tighten that as much as possible.
Yep. Love it, mate. So one theme that was also in his other book, The Dip, is this idea of scarcity. So he says leadership is scarce because few people are willing to go through the discomfort required to lead. So that's the reason for once you lead, there is scarcity, so there's high value in it, and you get paid well for it, and you get the good feeling, and you get a better life on the other side, he reckons.
It sounds a bit like The Dip.
It's a lot like
Scarcity in that everyone drops off.
Yeah, that's right. And when it's this discomfort that makes everyone drop off, and then that's what you leverage to make leadership worthwhile.
Yeah, love it.
So he says it's uncomfortable to stand up in front of strangers. It's uncomfortable to propose an idea that might fail. It is uncomfortable to challenge the status quo. It is uncomfortable to resist the urge to settle. And when you identify the discomfort, you've found a place where a leader is needed. So if you start doing all those other things that maybe people aren't cut out for, then yeah, you'll be on the way to become a leader.
Phenomenal.
So he says the one path that doesn't work at all, and that's the most common one, that's just doing nothing.
Yep. Mate, that's so good. That's it. If you do nothing, nothing's going to happen, is it?
Yeah. It appears to be easier, doesn't it? Doing nothing.
Doing nothing, yeah.
On the surface, it's easier, but he says it's really the stupidest thing and riskiest thing to do is to do nothing and not embrace change and take the path of a leader. Yeah,
so true. Another thing he talks about is movements. So he says there's 3 elements to a movement. You need a narrative that tells a story about who we are and the future that we're trying to build. So creating that story, creating that narrative for the tribe of who you are, what you do. And he says, what Seth says a lot is saying, people like us do things like this. So whatever that is. People in this tribe do these certain things. The second thing, you need a connection between the leader and among tribe members. And the third thing is something to do and whatever that is, whatever you're doing. And so he says most organizations just focus on having something to do. They don't focus on the first one of telling that story, having that narrative, and they don't focus on the second one of connection. So he says that's it. 3 steps to a movement: motivate, connect, leverage, and grow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love, mate. What's next on your
list? Just a little cheeky, just a little quote I saw here.
So I'm skipping. I'm about half the way ahead of the book than you.
I don't know. I don't even know where we are. Just a quote here, and then I'll try and catch up to you. He says, "Good enough" in quotations. Good enough stopped being good enough a long time ago. So why not be great? That's it. Take the next step. Be great.
Yeah. Love it, mate. So another good part of the book, which he said quite a bit, is change isn't made by asking for permission. It's made by asking for forgiveness later. So don't worry about what your boss is going to say or anything. He says just fucking do it anyway, and then ask for forgiveness later if they give forgiveness.
And that came up in 4-Hour Workweek as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
He said, do what you're going to do anyway. If you ask for permission and they say no, you're in a really tough spot. Yeah. Whereas if you don't ask for permission, just do it, and then ask for forgiveness later.
Just be relentless with your own vision, and then let them amend to what you want. Basically.
Mate, I'm just flicking through, and I'm just up to the F word, which I think was the second thing you said.
Yeah, I just went.
I'm way behind.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to add to that, mate?
Not the F word. I think you covered that very well.
Yeah.
The one I wanted to talk about, the Peter principle. I've got that highlighted and starred, so it must have been good. Here we go. Yeah. So the Peter principle. He says that in a hierarchy in an organisation, this Dr. Lawrence Peter, he said that every employee tends to rise to his level of incompetence. So in that you start at the bottom, you do a good job, you're too good for that job, so you move up, get a promotion, and when you're too good for that job, you move up and get a promotion. And where you stop is your level of incompetence, where you're not quite good enough for that job, so you can't move up any higher. But Seth I think that's pretty. I reckon that's pretty spot on.
That's pretty spot on, yeah.
Seth has got a little twist on it, and Seth just says that in every organisation, everyone rises to the level at which they become paralysed by fear. So I guess pretty similar things, but he says that leadership is being aware of your fear and going against it and doing it anyway. So for you to move to the next level, maybe not a specific job promotion, but move to that next level, is you just need to embrace that fear and probably do it anyway. Yeah. He says the fear's not going to go away, so it's just having that awareness and making progress anyway.
I definitely prefer that outlook on it because I guess everything is learnable, and it's just working with that fear. So, yeah, dancing with your fear is probably what's going to get you to where you need to go.
Yeah.
Taking the risks necessary.
Yeah, love it. Oh, mate, another big one, which is probably really applicable to employees and stuff, is he says fear of failure is overrated. So a lot of times people don't do things because they're paralysed by that fear of failure. They don't want to try something and for it not to work. But he says that's just it shouldn't be applicable in a corporate job because you're not risking your own money. You're going out there and doing what you think is going to work, and if it doesn't work, you haven't failed. What he thinks people are more scared of is that blame and criticism. So they don't want it to be like, oh, you made this not work, and people criticising your ideas and your efforts. So he reckons fear of failure is overrated, and it's more so that criticism. So what he says is if we tell I'm messing that up. Anyway, 2 questions. If we've got that fear of criticism, he says, number 1, if I get criticised for this, will I suffer any measurable impact? Oh, I think you talked about this, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, mate. I'm way behind.
Yeah. We're caught up now.
Take us to the next spot, mate.
Should we get into sheep walking?
Yeah. Let's
skip
up.
This. So it's obviously a combination of people sleepwalking through life and being sheep and just following and just kind of just succumbing to everyone else's goals or of the leader or whatever.
Yeah.
So this is the outcome of hiring people who've been raised to be obedient and giving them brain-dead jobs and just enough to keep them in line. So even though there is a reliance on change, sheep walking is actually still on the rise.
Yeah.
So we all know sheep walkers, I guess. There's a lot of them out there.
And that's what he says. That's what schools do as well. And that they train you to be in a certain spot at a certain time. You do your task. You're going to have this. You have to learn this certain thing. You're going to have this test, and you're going to pass it. Move on to the next level, where you're going to be in the same place at the same time. So it's just that traditional education system is just training us to be sheep walkers, essentially.
That's right. So the sheep walker is managed by fear. Like they're always worried that they might get fired or they might look bad or something. So when a sheep walker goes on holiday and they see someone on their laptop in Bali doing some work, the sheep walker will think, "Oh, what a pity! Them 2 people are working on their holiday." But the people on the laptop will be like, "Oh, what a pity! Those people are miserable 50 weeks of the year to enjoy this 2 weeks." So,
yeah, exactly.
So that's the difference between a sheep walker and a leader, I guess.
Yeah, and he says there's 2 ways to go about this. He said there's 2 ways to cure this kind of disease. So he says step 1 is to give it a name. So he's called it sheep walking. And then step 2 is if you see yourself in the mirror and realise that you're a sheep walker, is realise that you can always stop. And that's what he says. That's it. He says you can just stop.
Just stop.
Yeah, that's it. He says here that Seth's pretty measured.
Yeah.
He got a bit animated in this paragraph, I reckon.
What do you say?
He says at the end, he's just like, he says here, I reread those paragraphs, and some people probably think I was being a bit too harsh. But yeah, so he says, you can always claim the career you deserve merely by refusing to walk down the same path as everyone else, just because everyone else is already doing it. I reckon it's not too heavy hitting, but heavy for Seth.
Yeah.
He's a good bloke.
Yeah, it is a good book. If you've read a lot of books before and you read that, maybe it's not a big deal. But if it's one of the first books you've ever read, and you're realising that you've been a sheepwalker, maybe then it's hard to read this kind of shit. Yeah,
that's true.
Which is good.
I've only got a couple of things left. Page 88, he goes through. He says that in terms of creating a movement, there's 5 things to do and there's 6 principles. So number 1, this is the only numbered list in the book I think I've seen.
Yeah, definitely.
Number 1 is publish a manifesto. So he says just spread it as much as you can. if it's, writing, he said it's not necessarily writing a book and getting it printed and selling it, but it's just having your ideas somewhere where anyone can see it and say, okay, this is what this tribe does, this is the manifesto of the tribe.
Sometimes that's probably the hardest part, is because putting your ideas out there, that is where the criticism does come, is when you finally put your thoughts out there and, your beliefs and everything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Number 2, make it easier for your followers to connect with you. So like we said, tribes is all about communication. That's one of the 2 elements of a tribe, so you need to make that communication as easy as possible.
Yep. Number 3, make it easy for your followers to connect with one another.
Yep, same deal.
Yep.
Number 4, realise that money is not the point of a movement.
That's right.
So if you're just doing it for money, you're not in the right spot.
Yep, spot on. It's going to be about the group goal of the tribe, I guess.
Yeah.
So, next part I'd like to get into is how...
And number 5, track your progress. Do it publicly and create pathways for your followers to contribute to that progress. Do you want to do the 6 principles or skip that? No, I reckon this is good. This is good.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Number 1, transparency is really your only option. So don't try and hide it. You want it to be out there. You want it to be clear. And you want everyone to see it and see straight through it so they can be a part of it. Number 2, your movement needs to be bigger than you. In fact, it shouldn't really be about you at all. It should be completely about the tribe and the movement. He said movements that grow thrive. So if growth is important. Don't focus on growth, but obviously you need growth. Number 4, movements are made most clear when compared with the status quo, or movements that work to push the other direction. So obviously the status quo is bad, so if you compare what you're doing to the status quo, you're going to look a lot better. Number 5 is important. Exclude outsiders. It sounds a bit like 48 Laws of Power, but he says exclusion is an extremely powerful force for loyalty and attention. He says that who isn't a part of your tribe and your movement matters almost as much as who is. So having a clear, having an enemy, I guess, but having an opposite. And number 6, tearing others down is never as helpful as building your followers up. So I think that's sick. He doesn't even have any description of that. It's just, that's not even just tribes, that's everything.
Yeah.
Making someone else bad isn't as good as bringing yourself up.
Yeah, that's it. Always going to be thinking win-win, don't you?
Win-win.
That's it.
Sorry, mate, what were you about to say?
So I was getting into how to be wrong. So I thought this was pretty interesting about Isaac Newton. So he's probably the most celebrated physicist in history, but I didn't realise he spent most of his career on alchemy. So he was as wrong as a scientist could be. So, even though he was, he tried a whole bunch of things, and then obviously his Newton's laws got some traction, and they actually worked. And the things on alchemy, which he spent most of his time on, didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's an example of someone who tried things and then went against the status quo.
Yeah. As you say, he was wrong as he could possibly be, but he's still one of the top 5 most celebrated scientists in history.
Probably number 1, man.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Probably number 1, big Newt dog.
Criticising hope is easy. Leadership comes when your hope and your optimism are matched with a concrete vision of the future and a way to get there. So he says, at the end, cynicism is a lousy strategy. That was just a quick one I want to whip out.
Yep.
Elements of leadership, 107.
Yep. Rock and roll into it.
Leaders change the status quo. Leaders create a culture around their goal and involve others in that culture. Leaders have an extraordinary amount of curiosity about the world that they're trying to change. Leaders use charisma in a variety of forms to attract and motivate followers. Leaders communicate their vision of the future. Leaders commit to a vision and make decisions based on that commitment, and leaders connect their followers to one another. But he says you don't have to be in charge or powerful or pretty or connected to be a leader. You just have to be committed.
Love it, mate. So toward the end of the book, it starts getting into the obligation, which I really like. So he says, there's not far from us, there is kids who don't have enough to eat. If you go a little farther than that by plane, there are people unable to reach their goals due to the lack of infrastructure. And a bit further than that, there's people persecuted by governments, dying to hunger due to war, and things like that. So he says, if you're the listener, you're probably in a developed Western country. It's not really an opportunity. It's more like an obligation. You've got all these fucking incredible things going for you. Use that momentum to actually do something with your life. He kind of says it's a waste of an a waste of a life if you really don't take all these chances you've had and then just run with it and do something meaningful with your life. That chapter really had hit me hard. It was good.
We're in a pretty good spot, aren't we? There's not much to complain about.
There's not really excuses either, is it?
Yeah.
Us Melbourne boys, and we've looked at a lot of our viewers our listeners are from Western countries as well.
Yeah, exactly. Was there anything else you wanted to go into? Obviously, there's shitloads more. I tried to highlight my favourite stuff, but every page is highlighted.
Yeah, that's it.
So
obviously, there's a book me and Ashton really like. There's no real structure to the book. It's just like a series of blog posts and it gets you really worked up reading it. It just makes you want to do shit.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually the second time I read it. I think the first time I read it, which was just a couple of months ago, I think I got to the end. I was maybe a bit disappointed that there wasn't a clear how-to. Like, this is what to do, this is how you do it. But the second time, I was just on edge, just like, this is
He's just selling you the whole time on just fucking be a leader.
Do it.
Don't live the easy life. Do something against the status quo and make something of yourself.
Yeah, and that's what he says. There's no set, description of a leader. You don't have to be a 30-year-old, 6-foot male, white male to be a leader. There's absolutely no demographic similarities between leaders. It's just you have to choose. Choice. Just do it.
Comes down to a choice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah. Any other final marks, mate? Who's the book for? Big Ash.
I think so. The dip was definitely for every single person. The tribes, it probably should be for everyone. Yeah. What do you reckon?
Not necessarily for everyone because
it's definitely more niche than dip.
It's a bit more niche because not everyone's cut out to be a leader because it is fucking difficult at times.
Yeah.
To cop the criticism, but it's really for those people who maybe just a step before making the decision to become a leader, read this and it'll put you over the line into doing something good, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. He does also say that following is important as well. And that if you don't have the right tribe, you're not on the right... If that tribe's not for you right now, feel free to follow. Yeah. I'd say the book's definitely worth a read. If you're not a reader, watch Seth's TED Talk. I think it's called The Tribes We Lead. And also, if you don't want to watch an 18-minute TED Talk, watch Derek Sivers' TED Talk, which is only 3 minutes, called something along the lines of how to create a movement. And that's a cool, cheeky, short little video, which is good. On a similar theme about creating a movement, but also about the importance of being a follower as well as a leader.
Fuck yeah.
Okay, next week.
What do we read?
Oh, this is exciting. So it'll be we keep saying, well, we'll get Seth on. We'll get him on. So we've said probably, this is our, 31st episode. And for probably 28 of those, we said, we'll get the author on. So next week,
we're going
to redo Life in Half a Second because we've got him on. He's coming. The author's coming on.
Unreal, mate.
So looking forward to that.
Should we sing it?
Absolutely.
Sing that shit. The opportunity!
Tribes! Seth Godin!
Motherfucker. Marketplace rewards every tick. Marketplace rewards every tick.
Too short.
Lead from the bottom. Lead from the bottom. The difference between average and mediocre.
Life's too short to hate what you do every day. Stop sheep walking. Sheep walker.
Sheep walk. Leadership is scarce. Embrace the discomfort. Leadership is embrace that.
Tribes only need two things: a shared interest and a way to communicate.
Get that gun and shoot that sheepwalker!
To be a leader, just choose to be a leader.
Run up your tribe, we're going hunting, gonna have to fight!
Seth Godin. I could wait to Seth Godin's writing.
That's Seth. Seth Godin.